The string quartet was halfway through Canon in D when the cathedral doors slammed open with a crack like a gunshot. The music stopped. The bride gasped, and the groom, the most feared man in the room, froze. A little girl stood at the entrance in battered sneakers, a navy blue jumper too big for her frame, and trembling hands wrapped tightly around the grip of a stainless steel Glock. She couldn't have been more than 10. Her arms wavered from the weight of the pistol, but her eyes were steady, focused, deadly. Gasps rippled across the pews. Security moved. Hands twitched toward holsters hidden beneath tuxedos and silk. Dante Romano, the groom, the Don of the Romano family, the man who made senators sweat, lifted a single hand. All motion stopped. The bride, Valentina De Luca, daughter of the state's most powerful political fixer, clutched his arm. The little girl took a breath, loud in the silence. "My name is Elena Moretti," she said loud and clear. "My mother is Sofia Moretti. She's dying in a hospital bed 2 miles from here, and she told me that one of you," her eyes narrowed, gaze locking on Dante, "is my father." Nobody breathed. "I have 48 hours before a federal agent takes me into custody," she continued, her voice cracking slightly, "and sends me to a place where girls don't come back." Dante didn't blink, but something behind his eyes shifted. Sofia Moretti. He hadn't heard that name in a decade, not since the night she walked out of his casino without saying goodbye. The only woman who ever left his world without being buried in it. "Lower the gun," he said evenly. "Not until someone tells me the truth," Elena snapped, stepping forward. "She said he'd be here today. That he'd recognize her name, that he'd protect me." Marco Vitale, Dante's consigliere and childhood friend, was already on his feet. So was Luca Bianchi, the brooding club owner who once handled Romano hits like art. Elena reached into her jacket and pulled out a folded photograph. She tossed it onto the marble floor. It slid across the aisle until it stopped at Dante's patent leather shoes. He bent down, picked it up. New Year's Eve, 10 years ago, his private casino lounge, Sofia in a red cocktail dress, laughing, him on her left, Marco on her right, Luca behind them, arm draped over her shoulder. All of them drunk, all of them smiling. Dante clenched the photo. Elena didn't lower the gun. "She wouldn't tell me who. She said it would get her killed. But she gave me that picture. Said the man who loved her once would know." "Where is she now?" Marco asked, voice softer than usual. "St. Jude's," Elena replied. "Room 412. Coma, fractured ribs, skull trauma. Agent Richard Hale pushed her down a flight of stairs. She's not expected to wake up that name." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Valentina took a step back. "This is absurd. Get that child out of here, shut up," Dante growled without turning. His voice was ice. "You knew." Valentina flinched. Elena's voice trembled now. "He's not my father." "Hale. He wants custody. Said he has paperwork, signed power of attorney. If she dies, I go to a federal youth placement program." One run by his partner, Luca, paled. "The one under investigation?" Elena nodded. "My mom told me what happens in places like that. What happens to girls?" She tried to keep the gun steady, but a tear slipped down her cheek. "I don't want to go," she whispered. "I don't want to disappear." Nobody moved. Even the priest had stepped back from the altar, eyes wide. Dante took one slow step forward, then another. He stopped just out of reach. "Who taught you to hold that gun?" "My mom." He nodded once. "She did a good job." Elena's eyes welled again. "I'm not trying to hurt anyone," she said. "I just didn't know where else to go." Dante extended a hand. "Then come here. Let me protect you." She didn't move. "I don't care if I'm yours by blood," she said. "I care if you'll stop him." If you'll keep me alive? A pause. Then Dante lowered his hand. You have my word, he said. You're safe now. Valentina let out a disbelieving laugh. You can't be serious. This is your wedding. No, Dante said. It was. Elena finally lowered the gun. That was when the sirens started. Low at first, distant, then louder. Closer, more than one. Marco went to the stained glass windows. 3 cars, no markings. Tactical. He found me, Elena whispered. Agent Hale. He put a GPS in my jacket lining. I didn't know Dante took the phone from her coat pocket, crushed it beneath his heel. Too late, Luca muttered. They're surrounding the street. Then the doors opened a second time. A man stepped through, tall, crisp suit, badge gleaming. Hello, Elena, he said with a fake smile. Time to come home. She stepped behind Dante. I'm not going anywhere with him. Dante's hand drifted toward his belt. She's under my guardianship, Hale said smoothly. Legal paperwork, certified custody. Her mother gave it to me before her accident. You mean before you tried to kill her? Marco snapped. You got proof? A low voice answered from the front pew. I do. All eyes turned. Luca Bianchi stood, scarred hand resting on the pew in front of him. She's mine, he said. Dante stared at him. I want a test, Luca said, eyes never leaving Hale. But she's not leaving with that man. Hale narrowed his eyes. You have no legal authority. She's in danger, Dante cut in. That's all I need. Elena, Hale said. Let's go. She's not going anywhere, said a new voice. A woman in hospital scrubs stepped into the aisle. Tired, pale, but strong. I'm Dr. Carrington, she said. Sophia Moretti is awake. She's alert, and she's ready to testify. Dante stepped forward. Then we start protecting this family right now. Dante's private study reeked of cigars and war. The cathedral had emptied, guests escorted out by men in sharp suits and silent hand gestures. Valentina was gone too, her designer heels echoing down the marble steps as she left in her father's armored sedan. No goodbye, no protest. Just silence and shame. Now it was just the Romano inner circle. Dante, Marco, Luca, and the little girl who had upended it all. Elena sat on the leather couch, her feet not touching the floor, her eyes bouncing between the portrait of Dante's mother on the wall and the glass of water untouched in her hands. Do you know what you've done? Marco asked her. Not unkindly, but not gently either. You didn't just crash a wedding, Bambina. You lit a match in a room full of gasoline. I didn't have anywhere else to go, Elena said, and my mother said this was the only place I might be safe. Dante poured 2 fingers of scotch and handed her hot cocoa instead. She didn't smile, but she took it. Start from the beginning, he said. All of it. Elena nodded. She never told me who my father was. Not once, but she kept your photo. That one. She pointed to the old frame now lying on the table between them. Sophia in red, the 3 men frozen in celebration. She used to look at it when she thought I was asleep, Elena said. Sometimes she'd cry. Other times she'd say your name, mine? Dante asked quietly. She nodded. But she never said you were my father. Just that you were someone she could have loved if the world was different. Luca shifted in his chair. What about the agent? Hale. How did he come in? Elena's voice thinned. He met her at a diner in Queens. Said he could help her get new papers, clean IDs, a fresh start. At first he was nice, brought her food, helped with bills. Then he started asking questions about who she used to work for. About a ledger Dante and Marco exchanged a glance. The ledger. The one that vanished the same week Sophia disappeared. Names, times, wire transfers, everything. Never recovered. She never gave it to him, Elena said. So he started hitting her, calling her names, told her if she didn't obey, he'd take me. Said nobody would protect a bastard child of a criminal whore. Dante stood. Marco didn't stop him this time. Neither did Luca. Elena kept going. She finally got scared enough to tell me where to go if something ever happened. She said, "If I don't wake up, if something happens to me, you go to the Romano wedding. You find Dante. You look him in the eye and you say..." She looked up at him. "You're my dad, aren't you?" Dante didn't flinch, but his hand, resting on the desk, curled into a fist. Marco exhaled slowly. She remembered the date of the wedding? She said it was published in the Tribune. She had a friend at the hospital who printed it out. Dante paced. "This isn't just about you or your mother," he muttered. "Hale's not operating alone." The guest list today included 2 senators, 3 judges, and a federal prosecutor. The fact that he came here, means he's protected. "He has paperwork," Elena said. "He said my mom signed over emergency custody to him before she fell." "She was in a coma," Marco growled. "What kind of judge certifies that?" "A dirty one," Luca replied. Dante turned to Elena. "Did she give you anything else?" "Anything at all?" She reached into her sock and pulled out a flash drive. "She said if I got to you alive to give you this." Dante took it, inserted it into his encrypted laptop. A file opened, video recordings, dozens, hidden camera footage, Hale threatening nurses, financial logs from the supposed group home, men in suits walking through back hallways, girls with bruises being loaded into vans, a crime ring, trafficking, abuse, and Sophia, off-screen but speaking. "If anything happens to me, it's because of what I know, and because I wouldn't give my daughter to monsters." Dante closed the laptop. "Marco, double the security. Luca, check every rat line Hale has used, bank accounts, cars, friends." He turned back to Elena. "You're staying here. You'll have guards, food, anything you need." "What if he comes back?" she asked. "He said he would." Dante crouched beside her. "He will," he said, "but next time he won't walk out." A knock at the door. It was Rocco, Dante's inside man at the city courthouse. "You need to see this," he said, holding a sealed envelope. Inside was a court order, full emergency guardianship, effective immediately. Hale had filed it 1 hour before the wedding. Marco read it aloud. "He's coming back." With backup, Dante looked at Elena. "We'll be ready." The little girl finally looked up at him. "Do you think it's you?" she asked. "Are you my father?" He didn't answer right away, just reached into his collar and pulled out a thin silver chain. At the end of it, a hospital tag. Worn, faded. Sophia's name. Room 204. He'd visited once. 10 years ago. Never told a soul. I've always known," he said softly. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. Inside, a new war had begun. The room was thick with silence and suspicion. Dante stood at the head of the conference table in the Romano estate's upper study. The flash drive Elena had delivered now locked inside a biometric safe behind the Baroque bookcase. Across from him sat Marco Vitale, sleeves rolled up, brows knitted. Beside him, Luca Bianchi leaned against the window frame, cigarette smoldering between calloused fingers. And in the center of it all, Elena Moretti, the girl who had just dragged their past through the door of their future. The air crackled with tension, not from raised voices, but from the absence of them. "She looks like her," Marco finally said. "The eyes. That stubborn tilt in her chin." "That's Sophia." Dante said nothing. Luca exhaled smoke. "We were all with her that winter." All three of us, Elena, looked between them. You don't know who it is? No, Dante answered, voice low. And that's the problem. She took a shaky breath and opened her backpack. From the inner flap, she pulled out another folded photograph. This one more intimate. A hospital room. Sophia holding a newborn. A man beside her, face turned away from the camera, arms cradling the infant. Only one detail stood out. A burn scar along the man's wrist. Elena placed it on the table. She kept this hidden in her shoe for 10 years. Dante leaned in. Luca's jaw clenched. Marco sat back slowly. Anyone want to say it? Luca asked. Because I will. That scar's mine. Dante looked at him hard. You're sure? I burned it lighting Sophia's cigarette on New Year's. She laughed and kissed it, called it my brand. He flicked ash into the tray. She was drunk. So was I. We didn't talk after that night. So you slept with her? Marco said. Once, Luca nodded. Never again. Marco's jaw tightened. I was with her in the stairwell 2 weeks before she vanished. She kissed me, said she was scared. That someone was watching. Dante kept his gaze steady. She came to my office the night she disappeared. Said she wanted out. That she was pregnant. I asked her whose it was. She didn't answer, just walked away. She protected all of us, Luca muttered. Didn't want to paint a target. Elena watched them argue over her existence like it was a murder weapon on the table. You're all trying to remember who had her last, she said bitterly. But none of you asked if she was okay. The room froze. I don't care who she loved, Elena continued, voice cracking. I care who's going to protect me now. Dante moved first. He knelt beside her, placing one hand gently on her shoulder. You're right. This isn't about past mistakes. It's about what comes next. Elena wiped her eyes. She said the real one would know. Would remember a knock broke the moment. It was Rocco, the courthouse insider again, pale and breathless. They're escalating, he said. Hale just pulled in favors. Federal Child Services is filing an emergency pickup order for tonight. On what grounds? Marco demanded. Claiming abandonment. Says Elena was found wandering armed and unsupervised. She walked into a cathedral full of bodyguards and judges, Dante growled. She wasn't unsupervised. Rocco hesitated. They also submitted a sworn statement from Valentina De Luca. Dante straightened. What? She told the court Elena was an emotionally disturbed minor. That she pointed a gun at wedding guests, and that Sophia was an unstable addict. She lied, Elena whispered. Of course she did, Marco spat. She's protecting her family's interest. Dante's fists clenched. The De Lucas fast-tracked this marriage to lock in political alliances. This was about leverage from the start. So what now? Luca asked. We get ahead of it, Dante said. Elena's not going anywhere. Elena reached into her coat and pulled out one last item, a micro-cassette recorder. She slid it across the table. She told me to play this if you didn't believe me. Marco picked it up, pressed play. Sophia's voice filled the room. If you're hearing this, it means I'm either dead or too close to dying. And my daughter is looking for answers I didn't live long enough to give. So listen closely. I don't know which of you is Elena's biological father. Maybe I did once. Maybe I just chose not to ask. But I do know this. She deserves better than the world I ran from. I left not because I hated you, Dante, or because I didn't care, Marco, or because I didn't trust you, Luca. I left because I loved her more than I feared losing you. If any of you still have honor, you'll protect her. Not for me. For her. The tape clicked off. Luca turned away. Marco ran a hand over his face. Dante nodded once. We'll run a test. Quiet, discreet, but the result doesn't matter. He looked at Elena. Your family now. Period. She said nothing, but her small hand reached across the table and took his. The room finally exhaled. Then Dante's phone rang. He answered, listened, said nothing. Hung up. "Hale's coming here," he said, "with a tactical team." "When?" Luca asked. Dante turned toward the window. "Tonight." It started with the hum of tires on wet stone. By the time the outer gate cameras picked up the convoy, 3 black SUVs, 1 unmarked panel van, and a federal sedan, it was already too late to vanish into the shadows. The Romano compound had been breached before, but never by men with badges and warrants. Dante stood in the foyer in full suit, tie discarded, hands behind his back. Behind him, Marco secured Elena in the panic room with a biometric lock. Luca stood at the top of the marble staircase, armed and waiting. The front doors opened before anyone knocked, and Agent Richard Hale walked in like he owned the place. He wore tailored charcoal and confidence. One hand rested near his holstered pistol. The other held a red folder. "Evening, gentlemen," he said, like this was a cocktail party. "Where's the girl?" "She's not yours," Dante replied. "Actually," Hale opened the folder and waved a paper. "This says she is. Full emergency custody. Signed and sealed by Judge Myers. Federal Circuit. You're drinking, buddy," Marco muttered from behind. "Watch your mouth," Hale said, smile sharpening. "You'll need more than a forged order," Dante said calmly. "It's not forged," Hale said. "It's corrupt. But it's legal. Funny how those two walk hand in hand." He took a few steps forward. "Elena is a federal concern. Her mother, Sofia Moretti, is a criminal witness. You don't qualify as a safe guardian, Don Romano." "Quite the opposite." Luca leaned against the banister, voice quiet. "Funny. You pushed her down the stairs." "You got proof," Hale said with a shrug. "Yes," said a woman's voice. Dr. Carrington stepped into view from the side corridor, flanked by Dante's men. "I was Sophia's attending physician. She regained consciousness hours ago. She made a full statement, and I reported that statement directly to Internal Affairs and Child Protective investigators." Hale turned to her slowly. "That was unwise. She also named you as the man who beat her, who threatened to kill her daughter. She's delirious," he said. "She's stable," Carrington replied, "and her bruises match a prior pattern of abuse." Dante smiled without humor. "You're not the only one who builds a file." Hale's jaw twitched. "This is obstruction of justice." "No," Marco said, stepping forward. "This is the justice you didn't see coming." Outside, the agents he brought were fanned out across the estate, waiting for a signal. Not raiding, not moving, watching. Inside, Hale realized the trap. "You sent the recording," he said, eyes narrowing. "The video." Dante nodded. "To a few old friends in Washington, men who don't like the idea of little girls being sold out of government-funded homes." "You think that's what this is?" Hale scoffed. "You think I'm a villain in some cheap mob story?" "No," Luca said. "You're a predator who finally slipped up." Hale laughed. "And what's the end game here?" "You kill me?" "That's cute. The moment I go off comms, these boys swarm this house like fire ants." "They won't," Dante said. "Why not?" A new voice answered. "Because they're not your boys anymore." Agent Michael Reyes stepped inside, badge gleaming under the chandelier. 2 more Internal Affairs officers followed. "Hale," Reyes said, "step away from your weapon." Hale's hand twitched, but he didn't draw. "This is a mistake," he said. "You don't understand." "Oh, we do," Reyes cut in. "We've been building a case for 6 months. Missing girls, ghost foster homes, dead ends that kept pointing back to your travel logs." He turned to Dante. "The flash drive helped. So did the tapes. But the thing that sealed it? He looked toward the staircase. Elena's courage. The girl you tried to silence stood up and told us the truth. From the shadows above, Elena stepped into view. Marco had let her out. She gripped the rail but didn't hide. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," she said. Hale's face changed, just for a moment. No rage, no threat, just the look of a man who finally understood the game was over. "I'm not the only one," he said quietly. "You think this ends with me? You think I was the top of the chain?" "No," Dante said, "but you're the first to fall." Hale's hand twitched once more, but Luca was faster. The gunshot cracked like thunder. The bullet lodged in the wood beside Hale's shoulder. "Try it," Luca growled. "I dare you." Reyes and his men cuffed Hale. No resistance now, just dead silence. As they let him out, Elena whispered, "He said if I talked, he'd make me disappear." Dante knelt beside her. "You did more than talk," he said. "You started a war." She looked up at him. "Did I do the right thing?" He nodded once. "You did what warriors do." Dr. Carrington stepped closer. "Sophia's asking for you," she said softly to Elena. "I'll go with her," Marco offered. "No," Dante said. "I will." He stood, turned to Reyes. "You'll get the rest of the evidence?" "We already did." "This place has more bugs than a garden." Sophia knew that. She left everything in the right places. Dante looked at Elena. "We protect our own," he said. She took his hand. And for the first time since crashing a Mafia wedding with a loaded gun, she didn't look like she was surviving. She looked like she was safe. St. Jude's Hospital had seen its fair share of blood and betrayal, but nothing quite like the reunion waiting in room 412. Sophia Moretti lay against crisp white pillows, her dark hair matted to one side, bruises blotching her collarbone. Her left eye was still swollen, but her voice, raspy, cracked, defiant, was clear. "I told you I'd find you," she whispered, lips curling faintly. Elena stood frozen in the doorway. For days, she'd spoken about her mother in past tense, prepared herself to become an orphan. Now here she was, damaged, yes, but breathing. "Mama?" Elena stepped forward slowly. Sophia opened her arms. That was all it took. Elena ran into them, burying her face in the hospital gown. Her tears came in silence, flowing down the same cheeks that had glared down Mafia dons hours earlier. Dante stood back, hands in his pockets, watching something sacred unfold. "I thought you were gone," Elena sobbed. "I tried, baby. I really tried to hold on," Sophia whispered, cradling her. "He thought he'd silenced me. But you saved us both." Dante stepped closer. "She was a soldier." Sophia looked up at him. "So were you." Their eyes locked, 10 years of silence compressing into a single breath. Neither reached for the other, but neither looked away. "She knows everything now," Dante said, "about the photo. The scar. The night you disappeared." "I never meant to run from you," Sophia said. "I ran from what I thought would happen to her. I would have protected you. I didn't know that then." They both looked at Elena. "Do you think it's you?" she asked again. Sophia hesitated. "I wanted it to be." Dante blinked. "Wanted?" "I don't know, Elena. That's the truth. That December, I wasn't in a good place. I just found out I was pregnant, and I was trying to disappear before one of them made the choice for me." Marco entered the room quietly. "We've secured the compound." "Hale's gone. Internal Affairs raided his storage locker. Dozens of names. Girls, boys, all trafficked. Some confirmed dead, others missing." Sophia tensed. "He was working with someone inside child services." Dante nodded. "We know." Valentina's family signed half the contracts. It's why the wedding had to happen fast. Sophia looked at him. You were going to marry into that. He didn't deny it. I thought it would give us political insulation, make us untouchable. I didn't realize I was selling our soul. You mean hers, Sophia said, holding Elena tighter. Marco cleared his throat. We have something else. He produced a sealed envelope. Inside, a DNA request form and results, expedited by a private lab under an alias. Sophia's hands shook as she opened it. She scanned the page, froze, then passed it to Dante. His eyes flicked over the text. A silence stretched. He looked up, said nothing. Elena watched them both. Well? She asked. Sophia swallowed. You're Dante's daughter. Dante's jaw flexed. Elena's lips parted, but no words came out. The moment was enormous, but quiet, not triumphant, not explosive, just true. I guess I always hoped it was you, Sophia said to Dante. Even if I didn't know. He nodded. You could have told me. I wanted to. But you weren't clean, Dante. You weren't ready. I saw what that life did to men like you. I couldn't give that life to her. And now? He asked. Sophia looked at Elena. Now she's not a baby. She chose to walk into your world with a gun in her hand. She made her choice. Elena's voice returned. I didn't choose blood. I chose protection. Dante walked over, kneeled beside the bed. You have both now, he said. Blood and family. Sophia looked at him. I don't want her raised in this. She won't be. You say that now. I've already begun dissolving our arms business, Dante replied. The political ties end with this scandal. The Romano name will mean something different now, Sophia smirked. You think you can rewrite a legacy with good intentions? No, he said. I think I can rewrite it by protecting what matters most. They all looked at Elena. A knock came at the door. Luca stepped in, quiet as a shadow. Hale's contacts are scattering. We got word that someone tried to clean out a safe house in Tribeca. We sent men. Dante nodded. No loose ends. Luca looked at Sophia. You look better than I expected. I feel worse than I look, she said dryly. He gave her a rare smile. That's about right. As he turned to leave, Sophia called out, Luca. He stopped. Thank you, for not asking questions, for coming to see me in the hospital back then. For flowers, Luca nodded once, then disappeared. Dante turned to Sophia. Rest. You need to heal. I've been healing for 10 years, she murmured. This time I want to do it beside the people I love. He offered his hand. Then let's start now. Sophia hesitated, then took it. Elena watched their fingers lock together. Outside, the sky was bruising toward sunset. Another day had passed without Hale, without fear. Inside room 412, 3 broken lives began to rebuild. The Romano estate was quiet when they returned. Not the kind of quiet that comforted, but the kind that warned. A silence sharpened by the knowledge that the wolves outside had been forced back. For now. Dante walked beside Elena, one hand lightly resting on her shoulder. Sophia, still too weak to travel unassisted, had remained at the hospital under a private security team's watch. But she'd insisted Elena return home, to a home that wasn't hunted. Marco was waiting in the lounge with a drink already poured. She okay? He asked. She's stronger than all of us, Dante replied. Elena sat down on the edge of the leather armchair, her hands in her lap. So what happens now? I mean, now that we know Dante didn't answer immediately. He walked over to the fireplace. Above it hung a painting of his father, the man who had built the Romano name from extortion and fear. He stared at it for a long moment, then turned. We build something different, he said. Marco raised a brow. You sure you're ready for that? I wasn't. Until today, Luca entered from the east wing. He had dirt on his boots, a black file folder under one arm. We found the safe house, he said. Tribeca. Mostly empty. But Hale left a few things behind. He handed Dante the folder. Inside were photos, dozens, surveillance images of Sofia, Elena, and, shockingly, Dante himself. Pages of scribbled notes detailing old Romano business movements, banking passwords, schedules. There were also 2 sealed manila envelopes, labeled 1. Target, Moretti, child. 2. Asset, bloodline, father undetermined. Dante opened the second. A single sheet of paper. A DNA report. Different from the one Sofia had opened at the hospital. This one was dated 6 months earlier. Elena's DNA was already processed, Dante said quietly. Hale already knew. Marco read over his shoulder. He tested all 3 of us behind our backs. Luca exhaled. He knew who the father was, and still tried to take her. To bury the truth, Dante muttered. He wanted the daughter of a Mafia don lost in a system he controlled. He didn't just want control, Elena said, her voice small. He wanted to erase me. Dante walked to her, knelt, took her hand. I won't let anyone erase you. Not now. Not ever. I'm not scared anymore, she whispered, but I don't know what to do now. You live, Marco said simply. You learn. You rebuild. Luca lit a cigarette, but his eyes never left Elena. And you watch, always watch. Never let your guard down completely. Not in our world, Elena nodded slowly. Then she stood and reached into her coat pocket. She pulled out a photograph, the one from the hospital, and handed it to Dante. You never saw the whole picture, she said. Dante turned it over. The image had always been the same. Sofia holding the newborn. The man's face turned away. But something about this copy was different. Lightened, retouched, he squinted. The man in the photo was him. His wrist. The burn scar from a scotch bottle smashed in a bar fight. The cufflink. A gift from his late mother. Even the signet ring on his left pinky. It was all there. I held her, he whispered. Marco leaned over. That's definitely you. You were there? Elena asked. I came to the hospital late. After Sofia disappeared from my casino, I got a call from a nurse I'd paid once to tip me off if she ever returned. I wasn't sure if I'd go, but I did. He stared at the photo like it had just been taken. She was asleep when I arrived. I saw Elena in the bassinet, picked her up. Just for a second. Then I left. Why didn't you stay? Elena asked. Dante looked at her. Because I didn't think I deserved to. A long pause followed. Then she said quietly, But you came. He nodded. And I'll keep coming. For as long as you'll have me. Luca looked away, jaw tight. Marco's hand curled around his glass. Something shifted then, not just in the room, but in the walls of who these men had been. Elena crossed the floor and hugged Dante tightly. His arms, hesitant for just a second, wrapped around her. Then a voice crackled from the intercom. Sir, visitors. Dante pressed the console. Who? Senator DeLuca's convoy, and 2 blacked-out SUVs with no plates. They're not here to negotiate. Luca's cigarette hit the ashtray. They're coming to clean house. Let them try, Marco said. Dante stood, all softness gone from his face. Tell the men to lock the compound. Nobody leaves. Nobody enters. Until I say so, he turned to Elena. Go to the panic room. I want to stay. No. This isn't your war. Yes, it is, she said. And there it was again. The fire. The reason she'd walked into his wedding with a gun and a mission. Dante stared at her, then nodded. Then stay behind me. It wasn't supposed to rain. The sky cracked open just after 11 p.m. soaking the streets of Brooklyn in a wash of cold, acidic rain as the headlights of 3 armored SUVs sliced through the wet darkness. Inside the Romano estate, the lights were off. The gates were shut. The building, from the outside, looked asleep. But the house wasn't sleeping. It was bracing. Dante stood in the cathedral-style foyer, black shirt rolled to the elbows, shoulder holster strapped tight. Marco checked the backup generator. Luca moved through the halls like a ghost, setting motion triggers and alternate fire lines. Every guard on shift had been pulled from the perimeter and assigned a kill box. They weren't running. They were waiting. Elena sat in the security room beside Snake, the Romano tech ops man. The screens lit her face in pale blue. She watched as the vehicles rolled past the outer fence line. Men in tactical gear stepped out. All moved in formation. No visible insignias. No badges. "They're not government," Snake muttered. "Private. Hired guns. Might have once been alphabet guys, but not anymore." On one screen she saw it. The church. The same cathedral where she had first walked in with a loaded gun. They were headed there. "Elena," Snake said, "you should get downstairs." She stood instead. "I'm going to him." In the underground chapel vault, Dante unrolled the schematic of the cathedral. "They want the place symbolic," he muttered, "where the bloodline was exposed. They want to wash it clean, with ours," Marco added grimly. Luca holstered his sidearm. "Let them come. Let them think we're scattered," a small voice cut through the tension. "Then don't scatter." They turned. Elena stood at the top of the steps, flanked by 2 of Dante's guards. "I told you to stay in the panic room," Dante said. "I'm not hiding again," she said. "I hid while Hale beat my mom. I hid while the system tried to erase me. Not anymore." He stared at her a moment, then turned back to the table. "Then you follow my orders." She nodded. Snake entered behind her. "They're inside the cathedral." 12 men, heavy arms, infrared sweep in progress. Marco looked at Dante. "This ends tonight." The convoy rolled up to the steps of the cathedral. Rain poured off the stone gargoyles overhead. The stained glass windows glowed dimly from within. Inside, a figure in a dark trench coat stood at the altar. Dante Romano, alone, unarmed. "You came to pray," the leader sneered, stepping into the nave. His men fanned out, weapons raised. "No," Dante said. "I came to bury you." From the side balconies, gunfire erupted, precise and staggering. Luca's men opened with silenced rifles, dropping 3 before the first return shot. Smoke grenades hissed. The sound of shattering stained glass echoed across the chamber as chaos unfolded. Dante dove behind the pulpit. Marco pulled Elena from the vestibule into the inner sanctum. Luca descended from the choir loft, blade in hand, moving through the confusion like death itself. Elena watched from the narrow slit in the wooden door as men bled into the aisles. These weren't cops. They were executioners, and they were losing. One turned and aimed toward Dante's back. Elena opened the side door. "Dante!" He spun. Gunfire, but not from the enemy. Elena fired. A single, perfect shot. The man collapsed. Dante stared at her. "Who taught you that?" "You did," she said. "When you said never let someone else finish what you can protect yourself from." His eyes burned. Not with pride, but with fury, at the world that made her need that skill. They regrouped near the altar. Only 4 of the mercenaries remained. They retreated toward the rear transept. "They're pulling out," Marco called. "We've got them." "No," Dante said. "One more is still inside." A door creaked open near the sacristy. A slow clap echoed across the pews. Senator Alonso de Luca stepped forward, rain on his overcoat, disdain on his lips. Touching, he said. Really? This performance. The little girl with the pistol, the gangster with the redemption arc. Careful, Dante said. You're not behind your desk now. I warned you, DeLuca said, voice sharp. You should have married my daughter. You should have kept the alliance. You were trafficking children, Dante growled. I was controlling outcomes, DeLuca snapped. You were going soft. Sophia ruined you. That child ruined you. He reached into his coat, but a shot rang out before his hand touched the grip. Elena hadn't hesitated this time. DeLuca collapsed to the marble floor. No ceremony, no redemption. Just silence. Marco walked over, checked the body, then turned. Confirmed. Dante looked at Elena. You're not supposed to carry that kind of weight. I already do, she whispered. He nodded, and walked with her out of the blood-soaked church into the rain. The morning after the firefight, the Romano estate stood quiet. Not in tension this time, but in reflection. A dozen bodies had been cleaned from the cathedral. Blood scrubbed from pews. The stained glass above the altar had already been sent out for restoration. But no one would ever forget the sound it made when it shattered. Elena hadn't said much since shooting the senator. She sat on the back terrace now, legs tucked under her, staring into a cup of tea she hadn't touched. She still wore the same coat, slightly torn at the sleeve. Rain had dried on her collar, leaving salt stains. Dante approached without a sound. He carried something wrapped in a cloth. He sat beside her and placed the bundle on the stone table. I wanted to give this to you earlier, he said, but I thought you needed silence first. She looked at it, unwrapped it, a silver pendant, small and elegant, shaped like a flame. Inside it, etched barely visible, were the words, "Blood built you, but choice raised you." I had it made last night, Dante said. After. Elena ran a thumb over the engraving. You don't have to wear it, he added, but it's yours. Just like this family is? She didn't speak for a long moment. Was it always like this for you? She finally asked. Killing. Choosing who deserves to live, who doesn't. No, he replied. At first it was just about surviving. Then it became about power. And now, he looked at her. Now it's about protecting the people who never had it. She nodded slowly. I didn't want to shoot him, she said. But I wasn't sorry after. You don't have to be, Dante said. You stopped something worse from happening. Does that make me like you? She asked. Dante gave a faint smile. No, he said. It makes you better. Behind them, Marco and Luca stood by the doorway. They didn't interrupt, but their presence wasn't casual. It was ceremonial, like two sentinels recognizing the birth of something larger than legacy. Internal affairs called, Marco announced. Official charges are being filed across state and federal lines. They raided the last holding facility this morning. 47 children, alive. Rescued. Elena's lips parted. 47? And that's just in the state, Luca added. Once the senator's files get decrypted, it'll stretch wider. International. Maybe Dante looked at her. You did that. You broke it open? She shook her head. I didn't. My mom did. You did. He leaned in. You gave us a reason. A direction from the hallway. Sophia's voice cut through. Sounds like I missed the after-party. Elena turned, bolting up. Sophia stood in a fresh blouse and jeans, her hair combed back, eyes still hollowed with healing, but upright, whole. You're supposed to be in bed, Dante said, and you're supposed to be married to a senator's daughter. Looks like we both made better choices, Dante smirked. You shouldn't be walking yet. I'm not, Sophia said, limping towards the railing. I'm floating on caffeine and spite. Elena rushed to her side. Sophia kissed the top of her head, then turned to the three men. So what happens now? She asked. We shift everything, Dante replied. The Romano name goes legitimate. The arms, the laundering, the bribes, they stop. Sophia raised a brow. And that's just going to work? No, Marco said. It'll be brutal. But we've already made enemies by choosing her. Might as well finish the job. And what about the family business? She asked. Dante motioned to the house. We repurpose. What was once used to take now protects. A network of homes, resources, real safety nets. Not just for her, but for anyone who's ever had to do what she did to survive. Sophia's eyes brimmed. That's what I wanted. All those years I ran, that's all I wanted. You don't have to run anymore, he said. Then Elena pulled something from her pocket, a folded paper, stained and creased. She handed it to Dante. It was the adoption petition. Unfiled. Blank on the signature line. She met his eyes. If we're going to rebuild, can we start with a name? Dante took the paper. He didn't answer right away. He pulled a pen from his jacket, clicked it, and signed. Elena Romano, he said aloud, has a nice ring to it. Marco clapped once. We've come a long way from a wedding with gunfire. Luca grunted. And we're not done yet. Sophia leaned her head against Dante's shoulder. For the first time, they all breathed without the taste of blood on the air. 12 months later, the church looked nothing like the one where blood once stained the marble tiles. No gunfire, no federal agents, no screaming guests, just white lilies lining the altar, and a little girl clutching a ring box with trembling fingers. Elena Moretti, now Elena Romano, walked down the aisle ahead of her mother, her hair curled in soft waves, her steps steady. The pistol she had once carried into this very building was now a framed relic on Dante Romano's office wall. Beneath the glass, an engraved plaque read, "The night a little girl brought a Mafia king to his knees." The pews were filled again, but this time with different kinds of power. Not men with silencers tucked in their suits, but survivors, allies, and children rescued from federal compounds that had once served as prisons in disguise. The Romano name had shifted from whispered fear to whispered respect. At the altar, Dante waited in a black tuxedo, his burn-scarred wrist no longer hidden. He had once ruled through intimidation. Now he ruled through reform. Sophia reached him slowly, radiant in a gown that shimmered like starlight. She took his hand not as a trophy bride, but as an equal. A woman who had once fled in fear, now standing in full view of the world with nothing left to run from. The priest smiled gently. "Do you, Dante Romano, take this woman?" "I already did," he interrupted, to soft laughter. 10 years ago. I just didn't know how to keep her safe." His vows weren't scripted. They didn't need to be. He looked at Sophia, then at Elena. "You gave me a daughter. You gave me a second chance. And I promise, whatever blood runs in our veins, whatever sins marked our past, this family will only be used to protect, not destroy. I swear it on my life and on hers." There were no objections, only silence, reverent and whole. After the ceremony, as sunlight poured through the stained glass windows, now repaired and polished, guests gathered in the courtyard beneath white banners that fluttered with Elena's initials. She was no longer just a child, born of fear and secrets. She was the symbol of everything they'd fought to reclaim: truth, loyalty, and chosen family. Luca handed her a carved wooden box. Inside it was the bullet she had fired into Agent Hale's leg, polished and inert. She stared at it for a long moment, then closed the box and locked it. "Your story doesn't begin with violence," Dante told her. "It begins with your voice. With your courage. That bullet ended something, yes, but your words saved lives." As the celebration continued, Sophia pulled Elena into a quiet embrace. You never needed to be a weapon, baby. You were always the spark. Elena's eyes shimmered, not with tears, but with something clearer. Peace. They danced that evening in a circle of people who once ruled by fear, but now vowed to shelter the forgotten. The Romano crime family, reborn as something else entirely. Guardians in the shadows. Elena's legacy would not be inked in court records or tabloid headlines, but in the protection of those who, like her, had once been silenced. Sometimes the bravest thing a child can do is walk into danger with nothing but the truth. Sometimes the coldest hearts break open for the smallest voice. And sometimes a girl's whispered question, "You're my dad, aren't you?" is powerful enough to bring an empire to its knees. Believe in redemption. Believe in found family. Believe that even the most dangerous men can become the fiercest protectors. Like, share, subscribe. Because Elena didn't just change the Mafia, she redefined what it meant to survive. And if you're still here, you know it was never about the gun. It was always about the girl brave enough to carry it.